Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lawn Care CEO podcast. My name is Dan Ralphs, the head coach of the Lawn Care CEO. I'm excited to be with you. Look at this. 3 podcasts, 2 weeks. Are you kidding me? We're making great progress. We're so glad you're with us. Okay. Today is another solo podcast. I'm going to talk today really maybe the favorite thing I teach out of everything I teach, and is certainly a secret sauce for a lot of leaders I know. So stick with me, but we're going to start today. We're going to start today with a little bit of a joke. Now, I don't tell jokes often, but when I do, they're average. So the joke that I have for you today starts like this. So there's a man who walks into a bar, famous setup to a joke. Man walks up to a bar and he's the strangest looking man that a bartender has ever seen. So first of all, the man walks up, orders a drink, and literally reaches in a pocket, just grabs out a wad of money, leaves extra money. But that's not the odd thing about this man. You see, this man's head looks like half an orange. Well, at first, the man tries not to stare, but sure enough, it is inevitable. This man's head looks like half an orange. And so curiosity finally gets the best of him, and he goes to the man and he says, "Hey, excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but I have to ask, why does your head look like half an orange?" He goes, "Hey, no problem. I get it all the time. Let me tell you the story." Well, it all started one day. I was walking down the street, literally just on the side of the street by a dumpster. I found this old lamp. I rubbed it and a genie popped out. And the genie said, "You get 3 wishes." And he said, "Awesome. This is great." Now, the genie said, "I'm going to warn you that at the end of the day, these wishes can be dangerous. That if you're not careful, you'll wish for something and something bad will happen." And I said, "Hey, no problem. I've thought it through. I've actually, believe it or not, given this some thought. I know exactly what my first wish is going to be." And he said, "All right. What's your wish?" He said, "I wish that all of my family members, friends, everyone had a beautiful home, paid off, brand new car." The genie said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yeah." And he snapped his fingers, and sure enough, poof, he starts getting texts from his friends and family members saying this had happened. The genie said, "I think you got lucky that time, but I'll remind you again that you got to be careful what you wish for, because at the end of the day, these wishes, I've seen these wishes go very wrong." And the man said, "Hey, it's no worries. I'm going to make my second wish." He said, "Give it some time." And so the man decided it was probably wise. He gave it a couple of days, came back to the genie and said, "All right, I've got my wish." He said, "Whenever I reach into my pockets, my wish is that I will find money there and it will belong to me." And sure enough, he reaches in a pocket and pulls out money. And every time he's reached in his pockets, ever since, he's had money to spare. Well, the bartender said, "Man, that's great." He said, but what happened? What happened to your head?" The man goes, "Oh, I see." He said, "Well, once again, the genie warned me. I went back to my house for a week, and it turned in then to a month. And I thought about what my final wish would be. And I finally went back to the genie after thinking about it very carefully. And I said to the genie, 'Genie, my final wish is that my head looks like half an orange.'" That is such a dumb joke, but I love it. And here's the reason I love it, and the reason I tell it today is because today I want to teach you a principle. A week ago, we talked about the medical mindset. We talked about the importance of having kind of very sound, logical, Spock-like attack to the way that we think about and solve problems in our businesses. And that's fantastic. So important to have the head right, to be sound and meticulous and data-driven. All of that is wildly important in order for us to be a great leader, a great CEO. But the head is only half the equation. The other half of the equation is the heart. And if we don't get the heart part right, and the heart includes the way that we interact with and connect with the people around us, the way that we inspire or don't inspire the people in our lives, in order for us to lead, if there were no people involved, who was it said business would be easy if there weren't any people involved, right? Like if it was just a game, it was just a simulation on a video game, it would be easy. But the truth is, that really what we're up to is we're up to leading human beings, and we got to get the human being side of it right. And I think about that a little bit like the heart side. The head side's the numbers and the operations and the systems and all that stuff is important, and we got to get the head stuff right. We also get the heart stuff right. I've often thought about business a little bit like having male and female energy. That kind of makes sense. Like the wife is like, hey, we just take care of the kids. And the man's like, well, we got to pay the bills, or whatever your version of that is. That can make sense. And so we have to have the head and the heart, and they have to work together in concert in order for us to be great leaders. And it can't be one or the other. And we've got to strike the balance between the two. And so today I want to talk about the heart side, maybe the softer side of leadership. And if you've been alive for very long, you've encountered what I would call a talent whisperer. And the reason I call them a talent whisperer is because they're the kind of person that no matter where you go or where they go, the people around them tend to perk up. They tend to become better. They tend to behave more in harmony with what would be healthy behavior. They tend to prosper, and their talent kind of emerges as a result of being in the presence of this person. And sometimes when you think back on your life, you'll think about elementary school teachers or high school teachers or coaches, maybe a boss here or there that had this effect on you. I remember one leader who said, he said, I had a guy like that, man, when I was early in my career as a young lawn care tech. He said, I had a guy when I was 19 years old. Every time I walked into the shop, he would just shout my name. And he would just say, CJ, in this kind of big booming voice. And he said, for whatever reason, man, that guy made me feel like $1 million when I walked into the shop. And he got the very best out of me as a result. And so the challenge is that in order for us to truly lead men and women, we have to learn how to be inspiring enough that we draw out the talent and we draw out the very best in the people that we lead. So the reason this is so near and dear to my heart, and the reason I think that I kind of inherited this ability to some degree, to the degree that I have it. And the way I inherited it is I inherited it from my mother's side. So my mom, you'll hear me talk about her along the way because I have such profound respect for her. There's a picture of her over my right shoulder. And my mom was an incredible talent whisperer. And for the longest time, I always tried to figure out how she did it. She was a 5th and 6th grade elementary school teacher. She was a California awarded state teacher of the year. She was an absolutely talented teacher. In fact, the story would always go that when the principal of the school would say, hey, we've got to figure out what to do with this kid, this troublemaker, they would say, well, we'll just put her in Mrs. Rouse, put him or him in the Mrs. Rouse class. And every time they would come out model citizens. They didn't know what happened in there. All they knew is it was like a secret pill that they could give these kids and they would turn into these kind of model citizens. And I promise there were no drugs involved. The magic that happened was something about the way that my mom conducted her classroom. And I've always wondered that, right? I was raised in a home where that was kind of how she operated with us as well. And it kind of buoyed us up and made us want to be our very best. And we never wanted to disappoint mom. And all of those things happened as a result of the way that she operated. And so I've been thinking about for a long period of time what it is, where that comes from, how it is that you might be able to craft or recreate the magic that my mom had, that talent whisperer ability that my mom possessed. And so today, my goal is to share some of that with you, to give you an idea of what I think are the principles that undergird making someone inspiring as a leader, and giving you the ability to inspire people to actually go do cool things with you. And the first principle, like kind of the opening principle, comes from the idea that at the end of the day, at least for my mom, I think it was a lot less about what she did. Because at first I thought it might be a behavior set, a habit set. But after I gave it some time, I realized I don't think it was a habit set. I think it was less about what she did and more about what she believed. Because that makes sense, right? That at the very root of our behaviors, very root of our speech and actions is our belief set. And that belief set guides and governs everything else. And it dawned on me, my mom wasn't this magnificent Tyler whisperer because of what she did, although her beliefs led to that. It was because of what she believed about people. I'll give you an example. So many of you remember the television show America's Funniest Home Videos. Remember that one? And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's basically just people mail in embarrassing moments in their lives that they caught on home video. And we would watch this show together, and my mom would chuckle periodically, but very often, right, when the woman falls on her wedding day into the face plants into her cake, she would just say, "Oh, that poor woman. I'm so sorry for that woman." In other moments, we'd be watching the news, and some murder had taken place, and they're showing the murderer. She would go, "Oh, I wonder what happened to that man." And I thought to myself, my mom does not see people the same way that I see people. And so I think the first belief was this. I think the first belief was that my mom and other great talent whisperers like her, they first believed that people are amazing. They just saw the good, genius, capacity, potential in those people. And maybe it was because my mom, as a 5th and 6th grade teacher, that's like 11, 12 years old, sat right on the convergence between childhood and adulthood, like right on that line. She spent all her time there. And when kids are little, we can see all that potential, all that goodness, all that joy, all of that capacity to do good. And when they showed up in my mom's class, and if they were doing drugs or dealing drugs or whatever it was, and they were 11 years old, she wasn't looking at them, the kid, as the problem. She was looking at their parents and what had happened to them, right? And so for her, she could just see, man, all the goodness, even though their behaviors might have been bad. She saw the good. That at the root of every human being, her belief was, is goodness, optimism, hope, and value and worth. She saw the divine worth in every human being that she encountered. There's this really wonderful quote by C.S. Lewis that goes something like this. It says, and I'll read it, "It's a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses, to remember that the dullest, most uninteresting person you can talk to may one day be a creature. If you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship." And when you walked into the room, and by the way, this is true of everyone I ever encountered or met, or came to my mom's funeral and talked about my mom, they would always talk about the way they felt around her. And they felt special. They felt unique. They felt important. They felt valued. Arguably, they felt like they were slightly worshipped. So quite literally, if you walked into the room, you'd see my mom's eyes light up, and she would look at you and your soul, and she would just go, "Wow, wow, 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 wow." Like, think the way you felt when you held your baby, your infant in your arms for the first time, or your nephew or your niece in your arms for the first time as a baby. And you looked down at that little creature and you thought, that is the ugliest looking thing. I'm kidding. Babies are, apologies. Babies are ugly. Even my babies were ugly. But you do look at this thing and you go, man, wow. All of the potential, all of the capacity in the world. There's never a moment where mother holds their child and says, yeah, nah, this one's lame. This one's gross. This one's defected. They never do. Because at the source, at the core of every human being is this divine worth, this divine value, this divine potential. And I don't mean to get preachy, but I'm just saying, I think that's the way she saw people. And I've met others who have the same inspiring characteristic, and the way that they see individuals is just a little bit different. Their belief is founded as a foundational level on this idea that people are wow. So belief set number 1 is that people are wow. Like, wow, wow. By the way, just turn to the person next to you. If you're listening in the truck, turn to the person next to you and just look at them and be like, deeply in their eyes, just be like, wow. Wow. And by the way, having inherited that, I remember there was a day where someone came to me and said, oh, that guy's just a jerk. Like, such a jerk. And I know this is going to sound so totally weird, but literally I sat there when they said that, made that comment, and a little side note in my brain was like, huh, I don't think I've ever met a jerk. Like how lucky am I? In my entire life, I've never met a jerk. And then I was like, wait a second. I don't think that's normal. I think I may have met people who've done jerky things, but I never thought to myself, that person's a jerk. No, they're like, have all this potential and capacity. And in some ways, probably it's gotten me into trouble because I've always assumed the best of people, and people haven't always acted the best around me, right? But at the end of the day, I think it's done far more good because I've just been able to see people with their kind of divine potential. Belief set number 1, people are wow. Belief set number 2. So if people are wow, Mr. Dan, then why is it that so many of them do jerky, selfish, annoying, cruel things? Right? Why is it, if everyone's so wow, the cynic says, then why is it that, again, there's so much pain and suffering in the world? Well, we could talk for a long time about that, but all I'll say is this. Just like I said before, if you have an 11-year-old, well, I'll give you a different example. 11-year-old drug dealer is a good example. Really? Really, that bad behavior is that kid on that kid? Not that he doesn't have choice in that experience, but man, the world's messed him up a little bit. Another different example, right? So my niece, I think 3-year-old niece at the time, is sitting in my lap, kind of like bouncing. We're kind of cooing at each other. And she just up and slaps me in the face. I was like, wow, whoa. And sure enough, right, she slaps me just square in the face. Well, again, do I like consider her a bad egg? Do I press charges? No. Why? Because we understand, one, that part of the reason people behave poorly is out of ignorance, like my niece. And the second reason that people will behave poorly is because life messes people up. Like, raise your hand if life has messed you up. And we give ourselves that grace, which is interesting, right? We're way more likely, if we're late to a meeting, to be like, well, I had a good reason. But the person across from us, we're more likely to judge harshly if they show up late. And so again, belief number 1 is people are well. Belief number 2 is that life will mess you up. In other words, if people are behaving badly, in part, it's because life's messed them up a little bit. And at the end of the day, the belief then, those two beliefs combined lead to this idea that says, if that's not who they are, if they're wow and their behavior is not wow, then it stands to reason that they can change. So there's this like deep-seated belief that my mom had that people could change. She was a math teacher, and people would say, well, I'm not a math person. She said, well, no, there's no such thing. You could learn. You could change. I remember my sister, who turned out to be a math teacher as well, one day I was sitting in math class, in her math in college. They were in like their math teacher class. And at the very beginning of the class, all of the teacher had cleared off the desks and said, all right, go stand on this wall. And I'm going to ask a series of questions. And if you strongly agree, go to the other wall. If you strongly disagree, go stay where you are. And then if somewhere else, stay in the middle. Well, the question was, can everyone learn math? And my sister just thought everyone in the class was going to just march straight across to the opposite wall that says, I strongly agree that everyone can learn math. She was surprised to be the only one. So again, the belief set says, if you're wow with all the infinite potential in the world and you're behaving differently than that, well, it stands to reason then that you can change, that people can change, evolve, and be different. And in order for me to be an inspiring leader, I kind of have to have that belief about people. Regardless of what they've done or do. Now, it does not mean, and we'll get to this in a minute, that we don't create accountability structures. It doesn't mean that we don't punish offenders. I still believe in the prison system. I still believe in firing people. I still believe in all of that. Like consequence, this does not exempt people from bad behavior and the consequences thereof. But what it does mean is it means that our bad behaviors don't make us bad people. Maybe even we have habits that are poor. But that doesn't make us, again, innate, unvaluable creatures. Fair? And so at the end of the day, belief number one is that people are wow. Belief number two is that people can change. Belief number three is this: that if people can change, the temptation then, especially for business owners, especially with their staff, is to force change, to coerce change, to manipulate people into change. But as soon as we start to force, coerce, manipulate people into change, we lose. We miss our opportunity, because that force, coerce, etc., again, would be discounting or diminishing the belief that people are capable of doing great things. So my mom honored a person's ability to choose what they would do and defended that their ability to choose, in part because she believed so much that they would choose the right thing. And I'll get to that in a minute. So I'll give you an example of this, and it's a parenting example. So I have 5 kids. I'm not sure I've mentioned that on this podcast before, but I have 5 kids, most of them on purpose. And we had a tradition, we don't always, but we had a tradition at one point in our lives where we would go out and on Saturday mornings and we would work in the yard. Okay. Good tradition, teach our kids work ethic, that kind of thing. Well, my oldest daughter, her name's Malia. And Malia was probably about 11 years old at the time. And I said, all right, everybody, it's time to go out and work. She said, I don't want to. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And I decided to put this principle to work, where I said, you know what? I believe Malia is wow and capable. I know that I've certainly messed her up. But I'm going to let her decide. And so I said in my least manipulative, my least guilt-inducing tone, all right, Malia, well, you don't have to come work, but we're all going to go work. And I went outside. And I'll tell you what, I was fretting. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm a bad parent. I don't know if this was a good decision. I don't know where my wife was at the time, by the way, because she probably would not have allowed that. But I said to myself, all right, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to see what happens. And sure enough, in about 20 minutes, a tear-streaked face of my 11-year-old daughter shows up, and she looks up at me. Now, I'll get back to the story. How many times, right? Like we have to honor the fact that as much as we want to, we can't force behavior. Daniel Pink talks about in his book that carrots and sticks don't motivate. He suggests the things that do motivate are autonomy, mastery, and purpose are his three things that say that's where intrinsic motivation comes from. And so we can carrot and stick all day long. And by the way, if our only lever is fear-based or reward-based leadership, we're going to miss out. The goal is to somehow tap into the internal wow in people and help them to make decisions like my daughter did that day. So again, my daughter came out, and this is principle number 4. So when we give people the ability to choose between being awesome and not being awesome. And Malia knew that at least by our family's standard, that hard work was something that mattered and was good, and it was important to our family. And when given the choice between being awesome, working hard, and not being awesome, that people want to be awesome. And Malia, tear-streaked face, she comes to me and she just goes, Dad, I don't want to be the kind of person who doesn't work with their family. I was like, awesome, Malia. So glad you're here. Let's get to work. So I want you to picture a scenario where one of your guys is maybe not living up to their potential. And you call them in. Maybe they're not taking care of the equipment or whatever it is. You call them into your office and you say and the first thought that crosses your mind is this person is amazing, totally capable of great things. And these behaviors that are going on in their lives are not them. But there's a part of their programming that we need to rewrite, and I believe that they can. And I say to Dave or Francisco or whoever it is, sorry, Francisco, if you're listening, you're a good guy. But we'd say some version of, hey man, is everything all right? This doesn't seem like you. Our expectation is A, and you haven't been living up to A. But honestly, it's up to you whether or not you do. Now, candidly, if you don't, I'll be honest, you're probably not going to work here very long. But that doesn't mean that I can't honor the choice that it's really up to you at the end of the day. Now, I know that last little line where we say, hey, listen, you're not going to work here very long if you don't, feels very sticky, meaning like carrot and stick. Like we're wheeling stick. But if you go back to that core belief of like people are well, you're going to say that in a way that sounds more like, hey, I love you and care about you, and I want to give you a warning of what's going to happen if we continue down this path. And so and this is the weird part, even when we're saying, I'm about to fire you, if we do it this way, it can be inspiring and should be inspiring. When we say, hey, listen, this is probably the end. Now, when given the choice between that, again, not awesome and awesome, most people will choose awesome. Most people will choose awesome. And that's something we can depend on. Now, it's a little bit scary moment, right? When we say, hey, listen, I want you to be a part of this. Do you want to be a part of it or not? And we give them that choice. It can be a little scary because we need them, right? We need them for production. We need them for marketing. We need them to answer the phones or whatever it is. But when we give them that choice, very, very often they're going to choose awesome. Now, there are 2 exceptions to the rule where people won't choose awesome when they should. And exception number 1 is mental illness, and exception number 2 is addiction. Those are the one case that I've seen where people who, when we give them the choice between awesome and not awesome, they'll choose not awesome because of the drug or because they can't. Literally, the brains just won't let them believe they're awesome or whatever it is. And so that's the rare exception, which is really hard, and I don't have expertise around that. But generally, human beings are going to choose awesome. So again, principle number 1, people are wild. Principle number 2, people have the ability to change and evolve. Number 3, but it's up to them to decide if they do. And then finally, people want to be awesome. Now, all of that is very philosophical and nice and not very practical. But it is so important. And so the more that you can kind of look around and see the good in people, and the more you can kind of avoid really emphasizing or focusing or, dwelling too much on the bad in people, the more you can kind of look through and get to know people honestly, just like asking them questions, getting to know who they are, and again, seeking out what makes them special, unique, and different. All of that will support these beliefs that we need if we're going to be an inspiring leader. And by the way, if you walk around with those beliefs on your heart, I'm telling you, man, you naturally are going to up-level the inspirationalness that you show up in the world with. It is inevitable for you to be far more inspiring when you look at someone and are inspired by them. Dude, so good. It's so good. It's so good. So good. Okay. However, so there are a handful of things that for us, with that belief set in mind, here are some things that you should be communicating regularly to your team that will help kind of emphasize this belief set and help us to develop it as well, by the way. Number one, here's what you need to communicate to your team. Number one, I care about you individually. In other words, you are not just a unit for me. I care about you. So when that leader saw this 19-year-old walk in and he goes, CJ, and he yelled out his name, guess what? That was him showing, I see you, CJ. I care about you individually. In the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Talks about how our favorite word in the English language is our own name. So it's calling people by name. It's helping people understand that we care about them. One of the troubles with work in general is that the relationship between employer and employer is naturally sort of adversarial. Why? Well, I always do this as an example in like keynotes that I give. I turn to someone in the front row and I say, hey, let's be friends. They go, okay. And I say, but before we seal our friendship, I need to establish some rules. Rule number one, it will always be about me, not about you. Rule number two, if you ever do have personal things, please take care of them when you're not around me. Rule number three, if I ever ask you to do something, even sometimes on weekends, I need you to respond quickly and come and do whatever I want you to do. Let's be friends. And it's kind of like, do you see how the employer-employee relationship is like, has a natural kind of like inauthenticity to it, where it's like, no, this is about you caring about me, not me caring about you. And so we have to be very deliberate in saying, hey, I care about you. And so you guys are good at this. There are a million different ways that you can show this. I had one leader who was doing one-on-ones, and I said, one of the keys to great one-on-ones, sugar. He said, what? I said, go find out what the favorite beverage is of each individual on your team, and then stock a little mini fridge in your office. And every time you have a one-on-one, you pull out their favorite beverage, their individual personalized favorite beverage, and you hand it to them. And there are a million more ways you can communicate. I care about you individually. Thing to communicate number two. I believe in you, and I believe you're capable of more. It's one of the best feelings in the world to be believed in. It's one of the best feelings in the world to have someone look at you and go, wow, man, I believe in you. You're capable of more. And so the language that shows up is like, hey, Dave, have you ever thought about being a leader? I could see you leading a team. Or, hey, Mary, love the way you're leading our office. Man, you are capable of so much more. As we grow, I really see you playing an important position. Now, be honest. Don't lie about stuff like that. But whatever, like our job is to seek out the potential, the capacity. We were chatting in one team and we all started naming each other by trees. It's like it's okay if you're not an oak tree. Hopefully if you're in oak tree position, you better be like, if you're an operations guy, you better be in an operations position, not a sales position. But we're seeking out, what's the seed in there? And then we're communicating, hey, you're capable of becoming the oak tree or the bonsai tree, little baby tree, whatever it is, right? And we want to communicate, hey, you're capable of more. And we want to say it in words. Those words sometimes sound like, hey, man, dude, you crushed it this week. And that, I'm sure that's just the beginning. Hey, man, I love the way you're doing what you're doing. I feel like you're getting better and better. Hey, I know you're crushing it right now. I see some opportunities. Are you willing to do a little bit more? All of that, by the way, you hear that from your boss, from your leader at work. You go home that day and you go, hey, sweetheart, put an extra apple pie in the oven because I am a stud, right? Principle number three. Thing number three that we need to communicate. I feel like we've talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Maslow talks about how we have this kind of hierarchy of needs that we want to have fulfilled for ourselves when we show up in any community. Physiological needs, trust, safety needs, and the third one is that to be a part of a community, to be a part of something. And so we want to both communicate you're a part of something big and important and meaningful. This is where we talk about purpose and values and mission. But we also want to communicate not only that you're capable of more, but you're a part of something important, something that matters, and we need you. So this is sometimes where when we start to get into the accountability conversations, the conversations where we say, hey, listen, we had an agreement. You were going to go do these things. You didn't go do them. Sometimes it can be kind of like punitive where it's like, grr, I'm going to be mad at you. The other way to approach that is to say, listen, we have these huge, big things we're about at this company. And we need your part. Like when you don't show up on a day, dude, we are screwed without you. Like we need you. And again, that's a way of communicating in an inspiring way. Hey, the way that you're behaving isn't working. See the difference? Rather than saying, hey, if you don't show up next time, we're going to fire you. You say, dude, we're about something really important and big, and we need you. And by the way, if you can't be there for us, we're going to find someone else, but we want it to be you. We want you to show up. See the difference? Number 4, I'm not better than you. We can accidentally communicate a lot of times that, hey, I'm better than you. We communicate that when I suggest an idea, someone else suggests an alternate idea, and I say, well, we're going to go with my idea. Why? Now, maybe your idea had better merit. I'm not arguing that. But maybe the message we're communicating is, because I'm more important. I'm more meaningful than you. I'm more valuable than you. Now, again, when I say that I'm not better than you, it's not that I'm not better than at some things. What I'm saying is, hey, we're all it's Thomas Jefferson saying, hey, all men are created equal. We all have equal value here. We all have different skill sets here. I'm going to leverage my skill sets to the best of my ability. I want you to just leverage your skill sets to the best of our ability. Sometimes you're going to be better than me at something, and sometimes I'm going to be better than you at something. I've seen great teams. In fact, I'm looking at this hat. Maybe we'll have him on the podcast someday. My Lifestyle Outdoor. They're great at this. They have this great leadership team, and there's this really great camaraderie where there doesn't feel like, hey, one person's more important than someone else. It's like, no, we all need each member of this team. And as a result, they have this great culture on their leadership team. I'm not better than you. And then finally, when all of that congeals, hey, I care about you, man. You are capable of great things, and you're a part of something important, and we need you. And it's not that I'm better than you. We all are in this together. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you feedback, and that's the final thing. I'm going to let you know because I believe in you. See, this is a weird thing about accountability conversations and feedback. If you're in the mindset of people are wow, you're going to give more feedback, even hard feedback, because you see their potential, right? It's not it's not like saying to someone, hey, you're ugly, and knowing they can't do anything about it, right? It's like, no, you're going to say, hey man, I see potential in you to be better. And so I'm going to let you have it when it's time for you to be better. And if we give feedback, even hard, critical, clear feedback of how people can be better, what things they need to improve on, etc., and we do it in the context, from the heart and spirit of, I believe you're amazing, then all of a sudden it's received completely differently than if it's given from a context of, I'm mad, I'm annoyed, I'm trying to get my world taken care of. I don't care about you. I'm better than you. Received totally differently. And so, but at the same time, sometimes when I give this speech, people are like, well, Dan, what if they don't do the good thing? What are they? It's like, no, you should give them feedback and make it very clear. All right. Last kind of idea. So number one are beliefs. Number two are things we communicate, messages we need to communicate to our team. And the final piece are habits or behaviors that we want to install in our business to create a culture where we're communicating, hey, you're wow, creating a great team culture. The first one is regular one-on-ones. As we mentioned before, it's so important that we recognize everyone individually. Regular one-on-ones give us an environment. In fact, the first agenda item on any one-on-one for me is for me to demonstrate care for you individually. Okay? So literally every day, once a week, I'm sitting across from my team members and I'm saying, hey, how's your life? How's your world? Yesterday was one of my staff members' birthdays. I did forget their birthday, but I sent them a text today saying, hey, happy birthday. And I'm taking action to care about them individually. And the one-on-one environment is a great place where we put that into ritual, into rhythm in our business, so that every employee in our company has a one-on-one with their leader every week. And part of the agenda is, I care about you. We care about you. You're part of something important and we need you. All that stuff. Number two, create the habit of inviting people into the leadership conversation or into the next level conversation 2 years before you think they are ready. Okay? Now, this sounds a little odd. This was a principle I discovered when I was trying to teach my teenagers to drive. I discovered that my teenagers were ready to start the process of learning to drive and eager to learn the process of learning to start to drive about 2 years before they actually could officially, before they were actually illegally ready. And so whenever I could, I would turn to my 13-year-old and I go, hey, will you pull the van out of the garage and get it ready to go? And they'd light up and they'd get all nervous and they'd have their hands shaking and they would go get in the car. And in that tiny little instance, what am I communicating to my 13-year-old? By inviting them into something 2 years before probably they're really ready for it. Well, I'm communicating, I believe in you. You're capable of more. I'm communicating, man, I see it. I see all the potential in you. See that? And so in similar ways, and I've seen great leaders do this, they'll invite people into their quarterly or annual leadership meetings. They'll invite people. The conversation will go, hey, Dave, I know you're just a lawn mowing tech. By the way, never say just a lawn mowing tech, but I'll say, hey, I know this isn't really your role, but can I bounce an idea off you? I have this marketing idea and I can't quite get my brain around it. And in those little moments, in those little invites to level up, to step into something they're not quite ready for, in doing that, people start to find themselves becoming ready for it. I saw a team recently up-level one of their leaders, and he said, I don't know if they're ready. And I said, let's put them in the seat and we'll hold back on some of the responsibilities. And then but they're going to know we see them as the director. And they worked their way into that position as director. Okay, so almost 2 years before they're ready is the timeline in the back of my head, I think. Because also, I think we probably underestimate when people are ready and when they're capable of it. Finally, create the habit of celebrating wins, communicating appreciation and gratitude. So a lot of people will have actual rhythmed events. So, for example, in our quarterly planning meetings, we actually have a moment where we talk about accomplishments. We list all of the accomplishments we've completed for the quarter, which is a ritual, rhythmed way for us to celebrate what has happened up to that point. In regular leadership team meetings, we'll recognize or call out where people are doing well, our teams are doing well. The number one, there are two primary reasons why people don't stick around in their job. Reason number one is that they don't have a friend, and reason number two is they don't feel appreciated. And so find rhythmed, ritualed ways where you get to praise, appreciate, whether it's the morning huddle where you get to call out the MVP of the day yesterday, or a weekly team meeting where you give an employee of the week award. I know that sounds silly. It may sound trite or old fashioned, but I'm telling you, I'm not bragging, but I once got the employee of the week, and I was the only employee. Like we care about that stuff. And again, we're looking for reasons to, if you want to boost someone's confidence, you want to help them feel like, hey, I'm doing it right. Don't like make up awards. It's not a participation trophy, but we're saying, hey, when you do great work, we're going to celebrate it. And as we celebrate it, I begin to identify as someone who does great things. And again, the talent in me blossoms and thrives. So again, I don't know. Some of you probably naturally do this. And I think if you don't naturally do this, it can be hard. So my recommendation again is to work on that belief set, to ask yourself the question, if I were to fill in the blank, people are blank. And if you say people are idiots, man, you're going to find a lot of idiots. And if you say people are blank, people are out to get me, you're going to find a lot of people out to get you. But if you say people are wow, what you're going to see is all the potential in the world, in the people around you. Thank you for listening, you guys. You are wow. Even you, even that guy even the guy in the back, even the guy with the big beard, even you. Ladies and gentlemen, a couple of things, by the way, that's the end of my official remarks today, but I had a couple of just housekeeping things for those who are listening. We have an upcoming event that I wanted to just mention. We probably should do this in some kind of commercial form, but we're just going to do it this way. Huntsville, Alabama. We're hosting an event on date May. Oh, talk to me, Goose. On date May 16th, May 15th, Thursday, May 15th, Huntsville, Alabama. We are going to be hosting a 1-day business boot camp sponsored by Harrell's. If you haven't been to one of these business boot camps, absolutely transformational, worth the trip, worth the visit. If you want, we're going to put a link in the description to give you login and registration information. Number 2, as always, like and subscribe. The more you share, the more we talk about this. Our whole purpose is to help others do more good in the world. If you share that purpose, please help share the podcast if you're finding value in this. More than anything, we love you guys. You're wow. You're doing great things. Continue to do more good in the world. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.